What we do in business is we do all the work on the purpose for the business, but we don't do the work on finding that purpose for ourselves. Then what I discovered is the more from the top down we can take this approach into everyone. So if we can assist each person to know what is their word that they bring. So within Sipler's umbrella word of care, you might have joy, success, excellence. You could have all these different personal, deep things that stands for the individual, but they bring that magic to serve the care. The reason why we don't see more companies following it is because the leaders are not doing the hard work first.
This concept of breakdown leads to breakthrough.
I found a study done on gaming. When you play a game, in order to evolve in the game, you have to break down. You have to make a mistake, and sometimes quite severe mistakes, in order to learn from that mistake and evolve to the next. And I always thought that's a very good metaphor for the game of life. Every single thing in my life that could be deemed as the worst thing, in hindsight turned out to be the best thing. If you want to be creative, make sure you've got diverse people. If you want to be innovative, and diversity on all levels, vertical and horizontal diversity, as much as possible. One of the businesses took me to Joburg and put me in charge of had a founder who was a racist, and I just couldn't tolerate that because that was my background. So I retrenched him. He went to work for our biggest client and he fired us, so we lost half our business. So integrity is not integrity until it costs you half your business. So we lost half our business.
Today on CEO Lens, we sit down with Dr. Pepe Marais, co-founder of Joe Public, one of South Africa's most awarded and purpose-driven agencies. But Pepe is not your typical business leader. His approach challenges convention, seeing business not as a machine, but as a living being, shaped by purpose, guided by belief, and sustained by culture. It's a philosophy that has not only delivered consistent creative excellence and industry recognition, but also built a business grounded in something deeper than profit. Beyond the accolades and the success, Pepe brings a rare honesty to leadership, speaking openly about personal struggles, the search for meaning, and the journey from proving yourself to truly understanding yourself. This is a conversation about leadership, but also about humanity. Why I'm excited about our conversation is, look, we both have the privilege of running, large organizations. But I think the big difference between us is you run a creative space. And as a creative organization, you attract a different person. You serve a different purpose. And I think that has led you and evolved you to be a very different leader. And I think that's what I'm interested in today, is understanding your leadership approach and how that's evolved over time, particularly as you've gone on a journey with this beautiful business that you call Joe Public, and how that has evolved over many, many decades. And it's taken you yourself on that journey. So that's going to be our focus today.
Right.
But any thoughts on that?
I always, when you say a leader, I'm so super conscious. There's an Afrikaans saying that says, oordrewe bescheidenheid is die toppunt van windgatheid. So you can't be overly humble, because then you might be perceived as maybe a little bit like arrogant in being so humble. But I'm very aware of my evolution as a leader, which I attribute mostly to our business, which interestingly, as you ask the question, it links to the purpose of the business massively. So it's been transformative, 28 years with my partner at the helm. But so I'm a different person, but there's so much more I want to become. There's so much more I want to enable myself. I read the other day, one of the gifts of life is the ability to respond to any situation, to choose your response.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at that. I find I'm not completely there yet.
Yeah. I want to pick up on that. You have a very strong concept that you talk about. This concept of breakdown leads to breakthrough. And often as leaders, we think that we have to go through fairly polished processes and systems to achieve something. But this is quite a, disruptive process, this concept of how breakdown can ultimately lead to breakthrough and not collapse, and your response to that breakdown.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit around your personal experience around that, and what were the insights that you got from that?
So that's supported by the work of Carl Jung and Adi Land, this breakdown, breakthrough. And then I even found a study done on gaming, where even in gaming, when you play a game, in order to evolve in the game, you have to break down. You have to make a mistake. And sometimes quite severe mistakes in order to learn from that mistake and evolve to the next. And I always thought that's a very good metaphor for the game of life.
Yeah.
I even coined the phrase, and I say this outside of the context of death. So I haven't experienced close death yet. But outside of that, every single thing in my life that could be deemed as the worst thing, in hindsight, turned out to be the best thing. So I've always experienced, so even when my girlfriend left me at the end of matric because there was conscription.
Yeah.
And when I asked her, broken-hearted, but why did you leave me? It was because the new guy could play guitar. I mean, what a arbitrary sort of reason. And that motivated me to learn how to play guitar. And then through that, I discovered music. And for 16 years, I played all over the country in bands. That was like in the moment worst thing, but what was born from it was this incredible experience. And there's multiple, business bankruptcy enabled us to buy the business back, which was owned 100% by a listed entity in New York.
Yeah.
So, and I can go on and on and on and on. Every single time in my life that I experienced a breakdown, it was the fertile soil, little seed for incredible growth. And on the leadership level, the same thing. I had a terrible moment of frustration, but there's a lot of context around it, but the context doesn't make it right. Where I fired off an all-staff email because someone used my salad dressing. I'm a vegan and I've got a very particular homemade salad dressing. It says on it Pepe, and someone used it and left me an empty bottle. This was quite a while ago, so at least I don't think I'll do it today, but still, I fired off an all-staff email that said, if I catch the person, I will fire you. That thing was screen grabbed and put on social, and it trended. It was called Saladgate. But again, I go, as a leader, if I don't make mistakes, how do I evolve? Because I think the level of the breakdown, in my experience, almost catapults the level of growth.
Yeah.
So little breakdowns, little growth.
Yeah. So Pepe, take me through that, because your response to that breakdown is very different to many people's, right? Many people see it as a cliff and it's catastrophic. For example, in your case, writing that email, your reputation, the esteem that people held you in was damaged in a moment. So are you conscious that you're going through that moment? And do you prepare yourself to come out of it? Or is it something you intuitively do?
So the 4 stages of human evolution to consciousness, just super awareness, starts with being conscious that we're incompetent.
Yeah.
And mostly we're not.
Yeah.
So we operate on all levels at quite a high level of incompetence against our true potential. And I suppose my deepest interest is human potential and how to unlock it, creativity. The next level is becoming conscious of incompetence. I'm not at that level. The next level is then to become like conscious of being competent. So in the moment, being able to catch myself before I send the email,
Yeah.
calm myself down, reframe the email and put it in words that are actually acceptable within the position that I hold. And then eventually the highest order is to be unconsciously competent, which is the natural behavior again.
Yeah.
Because we're all conditioned.
Yeah.
I caught myself in the last 3 months because my most protected environment is home.
Yeah.
So with my wife, I can drop all my guards and just things can come out that I wouldn't want to be filmed and put on YouTube. Because I'm still dealing with 38 years of childhood trauma and conditioning that I'm reconditioning over the last 2 decades. So there's so much stuff. But I caught myself the other day being able to hold myself. That was the first time that I'm aware of that I could stop myself and just hold. But I am now in a phase where I know within 10 seconds of something not being appropriate as a leader, and I'm much quicker can course correct now.
But you're taking some negative experiences, which I think is valid, and it's what you've learned. It's a pattern you've learned in your leadership approach.
Yeah.
But this can also show up as a positive. And I find myself as a leader realizing that within the organization, we've become a little bit routine and our performance has become standard because, yesterday's performance sets a standard for tomorrow. And often moving through this concept of breakdown to breakthrough, I don't know if you ever use it as a leader, but sometimes you create this breakdown in the organization. And in so doing, you force the organization to go through that response you described. And it leads ultimately to a better performance. Have you used this?
I haven't thought of it, but I think I do.
Yeah.
You frame it so beautifully because I just saw, because what we do in advertising, there's this, Dan Wyden wrote the famous line, "Just do it."
Yeah.
And he passed, I think, a year or two ago.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of hosting his 70th birthday in Johannesburg with my partners. But I just in the last week saw a post where he said, "If it ain't broke, break it."
Yeah.
And it resonated so much. So I actually, as you said it, I actually do that.
Yeah.
I do force. Sometimes it's perceived as nothing's ever good enough.
Yeah.
But people are now, through my narrative, learning that it's because I'm going, well, we all know the famous saying by Jim Collins, good is the enemy of great.
Yeah.
And we are all capable of so much more than what we're aware of.
Yeah.
So I've never thought of it, but I think that is a big part of I'm consistently looking for, seeking out problems, but looking for those things that are wrong to create the spark for doing things better.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them.
Yeah. I try it myself. What I do on a personal level is that every year I set myself some goals, disruptive goals. Podcast is one of them.
Okay.
It's pushing myself into spaces that I have probably no reason to be in, no capability and competence, but in doing and putting yourself into that breaking point.
That's super.
Nothing really good comes out of comfort, right? It's only good comes out of stress and pressure. That's where the growth really comes.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you're intentional in putting yourself through that and taking on new challenges, particularly where you don't feel competent and capable, and pushing yourself into a place of discomfort, it always feels that's where the next level of growth comes from.
Totally.
And it's a positive experience. It's not necessarily a negative one.
I think I've never thought of that. I mean, I have, but not you verbalizing it absolutely beautifully, because I'm such a fan of nature.
Yeah.
That's why the sun, and this a friend of mine brought to my awareness that the sun doesn't make vitamin D for itself, and rivers don't drink its own water.
Yeah.
and apple trees don't eat its own apples.
Yeah.
But all those aspects of nature is abundant.
Yeah.
But as humans, but actually human beings, part of nature, we very much live in a scarcity approach.
Yes.
How can I do less to extract more?
Yeah.
Instead of, how can I just give more?
And that tree gets nothing to be gained by making an apple.
But it's abundant.
Yeah.
And it's healthy.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I've learned, because spring follows winter, and fires and the destruction of fires in nature brings new life and growth.
Yeah.
So I've totally adopted that for decades now
Yeah.
as an approach that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
That every single thing, in fact, I don't call situations good or bad anymore.
Yeah. I agree.
They're just an event.
It's part of life.
And every time when you're open to that, I think that's proper growth mindset.
Yeah. I
Less
completely
blame.
concur with that.
Yeah.
As soon as you put a label on it, you have a certain, I think, neuroplastic response in your head
Yeah.
that either puts you in defense mode or solution mode.
Yeah.
And if you label it negatively, you go into defense mode. And then if all you're looking for is problems,
Agreed.
if you label it as an opportunity,
Yeah.
all your brain is looking for is the way out. So I
100%.
agree with that. One of the concepts I really liked in your book, and I can see you live it, you come across as being a leader that deeply reflects upon themselves, and you are vulnerable, but more than that, you're fairly open about your shortcomings. But this concept of phenomenal logic. And what I found incredibly powerful is this idea of phenomenal logic being that it's not necessarily from perfect rational process that we learn things, but rather it's the way you feel and what you experience that teaches you and informs you as a leader and how you show up. And I think you were describing a little bit of it earlier with that moment with your salad dressing.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you discovered this and how have you used this?
So the term is a new discovery. Very good friend of ours, a fantastic conversation with her around intermarital relationship, because that's a really challenging relationship, because it's very protected. It is biased through our lenses, because mostly it's male, female. So I had this deep conversation, and this term came up because I think the learning through the phenomenological, I always struggled, but it's become now such a lacquer term now that I understand it. It's a cellular way of learning.
Yeah.
So the salad gate experience was a deeply cellular experience. It was like
very tactile.
Like that plate is hot is different from burning my finger. It goes into my cells.
Yeah.
You cannot learn that depth of learning from a book.
Yeah.
I mean, I was coming out of Soweto because the school that I've been supported and working with for 2 decades just became #1 township school in Gauteng. And the MEC at the stage gave me a phone call on a Saturday. Like, how incredible.
Yeah.
And my ego, which is a bit smaller, but it was still, I felt really good. I'm doing good. The next call was my creative partner saying, "You're trending." Someone posted your email on social. That massive shock to the system from experiencing a high and a massive opposing low because people were saying, this is the man that wrote Growing Greatness, and this is the guy who says he's such a da-da-da. And it opposed everything.
Yes.
That made me so aware of the way communication.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about, it's just the way I communicate.
Yeah.
I'm so alert and not in fear. I'm just conscious of my words suddenly.
Yeah.
I've never again sent that level of email, you know.
But also you're talking about this visceral experience, right? And it's leaning more towards intuitive, right? So you're not relying upon a logical, rational. You've done a PhD, right? Where You have to apply a logic, a rationale. There's a very clear way in which you construct a thesis.
Yes.
However, this is different. This is intuitive. This is visceral. This is learning and taking the knocks in a work environment.
Yeah.
And as an organization and as leaders, we're taught to lean to the logical and less on the phenomenal aspects. And particularly now in an environment where AI is stepping up, it's all too easy to lean to the left and rely upon analysis and logic and super processes to come up with a solution. And yet here you are running a business for nearly 30 years, getting close to 60, masses of experience. And this balance between logic versus lived is such a fascinating one for me. And how do you teach an organization to lean into the intuitive and not just wait for the analysis and be told what to do? Because your space requires that.
Yeah. So that's going to be, I think, a journey way beyond even my tenure as a leader in our business. That's so I love the way you go logic and the phenomena. I go logic and magic, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We've got these two systems to our lives, and I also used to relate that to the human being being more the logic and the being be the magic, but I've stopped that. I think the magic logic sits on the human side of our equation, and the being is a much more deeper, very pure, more spiritual aspect of our makeup.
Yeah.
But we've created, so out of the breakdown of business bankruptcy was born the purpose of our business, which is fascinating. Because I've also learned now that the purpose is actually born from the wound, which is on a personal level, that's 100% my experience across a lot of, not through the amount of people that I've worked with over the years in this space. But for 16 years now, driving this belief into a business, we cognitively at a very high level of understanding. People will be able to say, this is the purpose word, this is what it means, these are the 6 values, this is what they mean.
Yeah.
I've just done a test on it, and it's high. But on a more being level, it hasn't sunk in yet.
Yeah.
So I would say we're at 5%
Yeah.
out of 100%. And that will be being quite almost maybe overshooting, but I'll say, let's say 5%.
Yeah.
But then I thought, geez, if this is what we can achieve at 5%, if this is what 5% can do for the business in terms of just growth, what will happen if we get to 10% or 15%?
Yeah.
And we'll probably learn through the years that the more we become, the more I'll realize, back then when I spoke to Paul, we were at 0.0001%. Because that's the potential of the being. It's just the more you become conscious and aware of how much better you can do, the more you realize, it's almost the more you know, the less you know.
It's curious.
It's fascinating.
No, but it's curious because we've been on a very similar journey. So what we've been trying to do is drive purpose in the organization, articulate what that means.
Yeah.
And I think intellectually, as you rightly point out, if you stopped anyone in this building, they could express it and say it. What we realize, though, is what you're saying is, to what extent do you hold this dear to you? And so we then started saying, well, look, if you participate in these things that drive the purpose in the organization, and you commit your own personal time and you commit some of your work time, we will give you time off in the hope that that would shift the needle. And it has to some extent.
Sure.
It has to some extent. But I've come to realize is you've got to create moments and opportunities for people to show up and express that purpose. It will not happen organically. You've got to create those platforms. You've got to create those spaces and reward it and acknowledge it. Just
Totally
like you would a profit target.
Totally aligned. Totally. So I'm using Joe Public. So it's in our industry, It's not even by size the biggest player yet, but it's definitely
Yeah.
at the top. So we've got our human capital is just under 300 people. So it's a medium-sized business, but I'm using it as a test case, hopefully for something that can be scaled. I'm absolutely aligned. You need a system that drives it. We've systemized it.
Yeah.
We've got a tool that we're building that literally measure behavior. We started measuring the 5 pillars of our virtuous cycle, which starts with people growth, product growth, client growth, profit growth.
Yeah.
Because profit is sustainability. Without it, it's the blood of the business.
Yeah.
Although we may not wake up thinking we must make blood, it's the blood of the business.
Yeah.
And then from there, what can go back into society or in any societal cause that we support. Like you're putting a lot into those spaces now. But absolutely, I think if you don't systematically drive it, you will never manifest it. Because that's our Achilles heel. You know it as someone who loves sport.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say I want to get fit.
Yeah.
It's another thing to get up every morning at 5 o'clock and go run 10 Ks.
Yeah.
And that's what we struggle with as humans. We'll start with a intention, and it will last like a week or 2 or 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, and then it will start curving down, and then next year I'll set the same target. So we're so conditioned to not be our best that I do think the more we systemized, because these things are done with the right intention.
Yeah.
We're not doing them just for the bottom. We believe that there's a higher cause for the business.
Yeah.
And naturally, if we live that, it's going to make all the parts of the system flourish.
You used 2 words there. You talked about growth for the organization, and you talked about a higher being. You've spoken extensively about how a business or corporate is not brick and mortar. It's actually a being. It has personality. It has values. It has a lifespan. And just talk to me, if you would, around what's your understanding of that? Because it changes your mindset as a leader and your relationship to that organization if that's how you perceive it versus profit, revenue.
Yeah, totally. That's my narrative, and that's hopefully I can play a small part, because this narrative's been around for 15 years, maybe longer, but it's become into our consciousness in 2010 in the business world, this idea of purpose. So my fascination with us being human beings started in 2007 when I discovered my beingness.
Yeah.
So I had this insight through massive breakdown, relationship, marital breakdown, which fortunately through fixing myself, we fixed that as a couple. Financial breakdown, business breakdown, health breakdown.
You literally had built a business, right? Maybe it's worth talking about that.
So the business started 1998. Fascinating, actually, what happened was I come from an Afrikaans background, but going into the art field saw a very liberal side to our country, because you're just conditioned. You're not born with your lenses that you have. You're conditioned into those lenses depending on the home. So you can imagine born into the old apartheid South Africa and then finding an art school. And in the 80s, our principal already had black friends. I mean, that was already that was cool. You know? So went into liberal thinking, wanted to be part of the new South Africa, always bought into diversity being the cornerstone of creativity. If you want to be creative, make sure you've got diverse people. If you want to be innovative, make and diversity on all levels.
Yeah.
Vertical and horizontal diversity as much as possible. So I didn't need a scorecard for that belief. So then we were merged because we belonged to a big international corporate at the stage. We prematurely sold in 2001. And one of the businesses they actually took me to Joburg and put me in charge of had a founder who was a racist.
Okay.
And I just couldn't tolerate that because that was my background. So I retrenched him. He went to work for our biggest client and he fired us. So we lost half our business. So integrity is not integrity until it costs you half your business. So
Yeah.
we lost half our business. That was the business breakdown. That was 2006 going into 7. And
Full
then,
bankruptcy.
no. So it was the beginning of, and then 2008 the recession came.
Yeah.
February 2009 we ran out of capital and we just bought the business back. So the gift was the breakdown afforded us to be able to make an offer to buy the business back.
At an affordable level.
Yes, much more affordable. But then from there, in 2009, we were literally a month away from closing the doors of the business, which to me shows there's some bigger, higher thing going on in this world we live in.
Yeah.
Because at that stage, I already started our non-profit,
Yeah.
and we pitched on Johns Hopkins USAID.
Yeah.
AIDS was big. We created a brand called Brothers for Life. That pitch saved our business. So it wasn't technically, but it took us quite a while. Our son was born into a home with no furniture,
Yeah.
so at least we had a home. I mean, it's
Yeah.
more than most people in South Africa can say, but still.
Yeah.
So like a restart after 12 years in business. And then in the middle of all that turmoil over the 3 years, relationship issues and health issues and everything was going wrong. And I discovered this being aspect of myself. So when the business then went into real trouble, I used that opportunity because I read an article by Jane Goodall where she said, just like humans are human beings, monkeys are monkey beings.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it because
Yeah.
the first thing I thought of, it was the first thing that came into my mind was, wow, that means my dog's a dog being, the sheep's a sheep being. I wonder if I should eat them. Literally like that. And then I went, I wonder if a business is a business being.
Yeah.
And that drove me to go and search for the one being word. Because Joe's human name is Joe Public.
Yeah.
Sipler, human name. What's the being?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming yours is care, or I can't remember, but I did.
You're spot on.
You know what I'm saying? So there's a human name, Sipler, but there's a higher intention behind the business, which is care.
Mm.
And care is an intention. It's not, you can't deliver on care. There has to be an action underneath it. So then I figured out through all this experience and working with it, and so we collectively worked on finding, which you would assume is creativity, but creativity is the action.
Yeah.
Making pharmaceuticals and a product of excellence is the action of the business. It's not the intention.
Mm.
So the intention became grow.
Yeah.
Grow our people, grow our clients, grow our country.
Yeah.
Like absolutely critical. Do not sell to internationals.
Yeah.
Let our money go out.
Yeah.
Within that business's purpose.
Yeah.
Being aware of yours is a multinational, So, and then how? Through the greatness of creativity. So the mandate became our product has to be best in market to serve the growth.
Yeah.
And when that ecosystem started working, we saw unbelievable response.
So as a leader then, if that's your relationship to your company, as a being, as a human with a name, I suppose you start to think of your relationship very differently. You move from being very control orientated to possibly more of a stewardship approach to it.
Totally. Much more like with our children. Because as a founder, the moment I behave as if this is now mine, I enslave that business.
Yeah.
So
Because it's going to live for 100 plus years.
hopefully 200, 300, 400, who knows,
Yeah.
if we build it properly. And that's also my love for this approach. As a CEO, if you inculcate care as deep as possible, once you move on, the next person comes in with a mandate to continue building on care. What a phenomenal strength you can build within that business, because I could only find 2 brands in the world that's managed to deeply inculcate it: Woolworths quality and Volvo safety.
True.
And that's not just on a marketing level. It's on an internal level, because when I went back to the founder, Sonnenberg, I don't know if it was Woody, in 1931, in his original intention statement, he had the word quality clearly stated. And then they manage to build it into the beingness of the business. So I find it super powerful for sustaining businesses. And of course, it's not, because people misassume purpose is about just CSI. No, it's your greater beingness, reason for being. It's almost your...
So how do you not trade off your short-term performance with this concept of being?
I know.
And your one word, right, that you describe is growth.
Yeah.
Growth for your customers, growth for your own staff,
Yes.
growth for you as an individual. How do you trade that off?
So now
is it not a trade-off?
It must be difficult. It must be difficult because we don't have shareholders. We own it still. So now we own it 100%. We've got one external investor, but it's minority shareholding. So it obviously has to be easier, So because when lockdown came, we decided we're not going to make profit. Just keep everyone in jobs. Doesn't matter what the profit is. And I mentioned that approach to a big corporation, one of our clients, and they said, "Are you mad?" Because shareholders. So it's difficult for me to say. But I suppose what's happened in the last 3 years with a very challenged trading condition in our country, economically, and with the macro global madness, I've realized there is as higher nobility in the growth of profit as there is in the growth of people, as there is in the growth of clients.
Maybe they're linked.
They're totally linked.
Yeah.
I think the balanced scorecard, which is such an old concept but never properly implemented, I think it's balanced. So if you've got 5 pillars, they each take 20%. They each measure out of 20%. They all are equally important. And that's, with that awareness and being very clear on that and not suddenly making...
So Pepe, in your doctorate and in your book, you describe organizations that have put that being concept on their balance sheet, right? And it's driven them.
Yeah.
And they have outperformed the stock market.
By 3, I can't remember the numbers, but significantly. But not many. I mean, we know one of the perceived conscious companies, because they called, the concept is called conscious capitalism.
Correct.
So it's, yes, it's the best. Capitalism can be used for good. It's not just a pyramid like this with a few at the top. You can invert it. And the leaders sit and hold the whole thing. It serves everyone. Doesn't mean the leader has to get less. We know the value that people bring. You normally extract the value you bring. You should. So I love that. Patagonia is one that comes to mind. John Mackey's Whole Foods is another one. I haven't really gone deeply into Mahindra, but even in India, that company is seen very much as a more conscious of what you can do with capital. Like money can be the root of all good.
And transform India.
Yeah, you can transform nations.
Yeah.
So I'm always...
Tata is another example in India where they have really been a transformative company, not just for the people who work for them, but for the nation.
Yeah. There's not enough though. So if I look at the book called Firms of Endearment, which is kind of like the new version of Good to Great, because the Good to Great Jim Collins companies didn't sustain. The Japanese businesses sustain. I haven't been to Japan, so I get challenged with that sometimes, saying, but it's horrible corporate. I say, I don't know, I haven't been there. But they have thousands of businesses over 100 years, and they've got a few over 1,000 years. So, and the Ikigai, which is their model of purpose, that Ikigai model is exactly what purpose is about, the why and the how. So in Firms of Endearment, I think it's 28 companies out of 40,000. So
are led this way.
So it's not a lot. It's minute.
So why is that?
I remember when I found this insight. So for my academic journey, I just wanted it for credibility. So I just wanted to get into the space. I'm a advertising professional, marketer, but also creative. So I come from a creative side of the industry, very much my badge. And then through the business transformation, getting into the space of purpose. So mixing my marketing experience with this idea of one word, because it works for branding as well, but it's a much deeper concept. So I went on an academic journey. I got myself the best supervisor. like a doctor. He's got like 2 DBMs and 3 PhDs. So I said to him, "You're going to help me here, buddy. We're going to hit this." And I remember when I found, because your question is, if this is so awesome, why is the percentage of business adopting it so tiny?
Yeah.
And this was the insight that when I shared this, he literally, if he could do a backflip, he would have done it. He was so excited. What an organization can only be as conscious as its leaders. So if you have a board of 10 people and you employ 1,000 people, and of those 10 people, only one of the leaders is aware of his or her personal purpose and living it, you will only implement to a maximum of 10%.
Yeah.
So what we do in business is we do all the work on the purpose for the business, but we don't do the work on finding that purpose for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then what I discovered is the more from the top down we can take this approach into everyone. So if we can assist each person to know what is their word that they bring.
Yeah.
So within Sipler's umbrella word of care, you might have joy and success and excellence and magnificence and awesomeness and freedom and greatness. And you could have all these different personal, very deep things that stands for the individual, but they bring that magic to serve the care. And that was the big insight. So I would say that the reason why we don't see more companies following it is because the leaders are not doing the hard work first. And that's what I'm trying to now prove by systematically, from the top down, starting to bring that into the awareness of all the individuals in the business.
You know, Pepe, I think also in a space where you have a promoter, an owner like yourself, your relationship with that business, that being, is measured in decades. However, in big corporate spaces, CEOs are hired on 5-year terms. Their shares, their bonuses, their reward structures are structured around business metrics. Market share, profitability, revenue growth, and diversification of portfolio, for example. It's very rare that you find a CEO staying for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Typically, their lifespans are shorter.
Agree.
And I think the way in which we structure business and the relationship we hold to a business, you don't see it as a being when you're on a 5-year relationship. It's a brick and mortar that has to deliver a certain outcome. Whereas I think with your relationship with the business, you see it lasting 100, like you said, Ikigai, Japan, thousands of years. And therefore you realize that today's profitability is important and good. But it's not what's going to keep the business alive for 10 years. It'll keep it alive for 1 year. You have to go out and hunt again next year. But this purpose, this conscious capitalism, lives way beyond your years. And I think that's a very powerful, empowering concept.
I completely 100% agree. However, if I look at South African breweries, 130 years old. Okay, now I've sold off in recent years, in the last 5, 6, 8 years to AB InBev. I don't know how long that. So now it's already like, okay, now what it's becoming. But I have picked up a narrative without clarity of purpose. This thing of we're getting something and let's leave it when we leave in a better way. So even when I look at countries, because I have thought about exactly that, and it's absolutely right. Even countries operate short term. And out of the 195 countries in the world, there's only one country that's defined by a purpose word. So the GDP is the gross national happiness of the country, Bhutan. And they're one of the poorest countries in the world, but they're one of the happiest nations. So United Nations are actually showing an interest in them because of that. So I'm going, I understand that shortcoming, but isn't that even more of a reason to build something in the business that the next CEO can build on?
That's right.
So when he or her stays for 5 years or 10 years, they keep on strengthening this essence And over time, it will just become like this incredible organism. And so for me, care, yes, care for the people, but care for the product. It must be the most care as much for the product as for the, and then care for the B2B and the B2C consumer, and care for the profit, and care for the community. It's not one in the absence. It's totally symbiotic. It's totally organic and interlinked. And that's the way I'm trying to build this philosophy for the sake of sustainability.
Just a personal reflection. Cipla is led by a very interesting man who's over 90 years of age.
Wow.
And his name is Dr. Hamid. And I've been in the organization now for over 13 years. It's my 13th year. And in that time, he has never once asked me about my profitability and never once asked me about my revenue. But he asked me all the time, what are you doing for patients in Africa? What new medicines are you developing? What more patients are you actually helping and supporting? So I almost feel it's the accountability and responsibility of the board to make sure that whoever runs that organization next, the CEO, that is inculcated as part of their objective, and they are held to that conscious capitalism, that purpose. And I think that's something which we need to be more aware of versus a promoter-led business where your direct influence is there.
So that I want to read up on that, because that I find fascinating, because everything he told me is about someone who understands that capital is a byproduct of service.
Yeah.
At an unconscious or conscious level. That to me, I make that assumption quite sort of, I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's going, how well are you serving?
Correct.
How well
And that's the
serving?
stewardship consideration that you spoke about earlier. I want to, if I may, get a bit personal with you. Many leaders, and you're one of them, right, that are high achievers. I mean, your organization, Joe Public, is probably more decorated than any other organization, creative organization in South Africa. And it's independently owned. And it's probably the highest performing in terms of picking up awards and picking up companies. Organization of 300 people. When I looked at your book and I read a little bit about you, there was something interesting I picked up, and it was this concept of being not good enough. And it seemed to me it's quite a common feature in many leaders and successful leaders that becomes your jet fuel to prove that you are good enough and to put the performance out there to say, see what I am capable of, see who I am. Maybe would you mind just describing what was driving all that? What happened that got you there?
Yeah, that's a great, because this one, I believe that to be the key to everything. That's why I'm not calling it a good or bad. It's just a limiting assumption.
Yeah.
So it's not the truth.
Yeah.
And it's born into all of us. It's not necessarily always I'm not good enough. But often it is. It could also be I'm not worthy. It could be I'm useless. It could be I'm stupid. Like, we have multiple limiting assumptions, a narrative that's deeply internalized that we share with no one. So people can assume from the outside, wow, what a confident, amazing leader.
Yeah.
On the inside, opposite narrative. It's mostly rooted in a childhood event between 0 and 7, and then compounded over years through multiple other events, where it's almost like I'm self-judged, I'm not good enough because of a very specific childhood event. And then anything might not be the same event, but if my girlfriend leaves me, it kind of like builds on that. It becomes incredible jet fuel for high performance.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not good enough, I will show you. I will be the best.
Yeah.
So then I turn out being the best in my industry when I worked for other people. And I will outperform everyone at art school and be 4 years number one. But it's actually a very selfish approach to life. Very selfish, very childlike. And definitely has a ceiling. That's in my experience.
Yeah.
It definitely took me to a certain level, but I realized no matter the shine, I didn't feel better inside. So I had to go and fix that. But what was phenomenal was in fixing that. That's why I think we think good is good enough. We're not aware of this massive
Growth.
huge. We can't comprehend the scale of our potential. And I'm on that journey because I've put that thing very profoundly to bed. I've got zero negative speak language in my head to myself. I deeply respect myself with all my mistakes. And I don't beat myself up because now I love these mistakes. I don't always love making them, but when they happen, I go, there's a lesson.
Yeah.
You've got more to grow. You've got more to...
The response to that, as you described in the very beginning, is not, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't define me.
No. It's almost the beginning of the world.
It's the beginning of the world.
Yeah.
And what's coming now that I can build on and accelerate from.
Yeah. And how awesome will it be? Okay, so it's probably going to happen again and again and again, but after about 50 times, it's going to get better and better and better. And imagine me then and my capability and ability. Because now I'm also dealing with people with trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
So it still frustrates me, but I've got more empathy.
Yeah.
Because I'm going, geez, I wonder what's really going on there. I've even realized one of my big learnings in the last month is that I don't know my wife after 41 years. Because she's not here seeing us speaking. She's not in this experience. She wasn't on the plane last night. She wasn't driving through. So we miss big chunks of each other's lives. She's the person I know most.
Yeah.
As she knows me. But we don't know each other. So I go, wow, I'm over-expecting from individuals too soon.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, amazing, liberating experience.
So that shift that you've gone through, right, which is inadequacy, proving yourself, you've now moved into a space of understanding yourself and going on that journey of trying to create the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And that must make you a very different leader
Yeah.
in the way in which you engage with your team, the way in which you show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And they will... My last very big formative event was in 2023, August. Like, it was probably at a much higher scale of... The salad gate pales in comparison, but that was the last big one. And that one shifted me back into religion, funny enough. It's fascinating. If I look back on it, that was the worst day of my professional career. Worse than the day we went bankrupt. It was an experience that I probably will not speak of publicly, the detail of it, for as long as I live. Few people close to me know the detail of it. I caused it, but the response to it was not, in my mind, the correct. It was not right. But it was such a deeply traumatic experience in my business career. It unlocked my new spiritual journey.
Yeah.
So now you can't look at that and go and say that was a bad day.
So this idea that who leads the leader, right? That's what you're probably talking about.
Yes.
It's referenced in your book. And this whole thing around a leader and a leadership role is a very lonely experience.
Yes.
You spoke about being vulnerable in front of your wife and being who you are fully in front of your wife. And yet you say, she may not fully know you.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But this idea of who leads the leader, just what do you understand by that? And what are you thinking along those lines?
So whenever anyone asks me, so I've been very spiritually inclined since 2007. I was brought up Christian, but because it felt quite indoctrinated, when I found the art school and the art and the music and all the stuff, I sort of gravitated away. I had a very close to death experience at 25, which kind of stirred something in me that there's something bigger because the experience was profound. Yeah. And then I had this turning point in my life in 2007, which was biblical.
Yeah.
So I definitely accepted there's a greater, there's a God.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind. And also when I drowned at 25, I had the same experience of the bigness of something beyond us. But I didn't link it to religion. I used to say I'm a Muslim Christian. So I respect religions, but I'm part of everything kind of thing. But what happened in 2023 opened the pathway to really go, but who's really guiding me? So in my little, which is ours, because we're partners in this business, but in our little pyramid, the conscious pyramid, that's my domain and I'm the boss. So, and who do I really look up to as leaders in a world that's quite devoid of true leadership? You know, like how many leaders really behave in a way that I aspire to? And that unlocked the insight that if I really think who's a profound leader, I have to say Jesus. I mean, and then I reflected back and I was, geez, that's so interesting, because whenever anyone asked me for years, which leaders do you admire, I would go, Jesus and Nelson Mandela. It's just something of their beingness and their behavior that's inspiring. So all those things started coming together. Now I'm on that journey of looking towards that as a guiding hand.
And I suppose that journey itself also helps you because there's a degree of surrender, right? Where you saying, look, I don't have to have all the answers. I'm human.
Yeah.
I'm being led by something greater than me, and therefore I can seek guidance and solutions.
Yes, it's like my reflection even last night on the plane is I've got my little angel of surrender. I think surrender is going to be probably the title of if I write another book.
Yeah.
Because that's now the journey. This battle between the soul, which is the ego, and the personality, and all the conditioning, and the spirit. That is a real battle, because it's the one wants to surrender to the will of something far greater than a mere mortal. But the other one wants to be like, I'm still in charge, but I'm not. So, and that's a wonderful, that's not something that when I say battle, it's not, it's a really exciting creative experience to just hand over to something greater and to accept that the purpose, that one word, care, is God's purpose for the business, not some humans, or the growth of Joe is greater. That's not my belief. So I'm not saying this is the truth. This is my truth. And maybe this country has one word too. That's God's purpose for this country. And the wound of this country is apartheid. So what is the furthest opposite expression of that wound? That will be the purpose for this country. What an amazing thing if in our lifetime a discovery like that gets made for this country. And somehow it pulls everyone together to become a shining example to the world. So
Dr. Pepe Marais, I want to wish you a lot of success on that journey with Joe Public. And I know what you're trying to do there is set it up as an example, almost a case study of what's possible on a macro scale across South Africa. And it's been a privilege just to get your insights and get your leadership style, the way you see the world, the way you see your business, the being. I've been absolutely thriving and really enjoying the conversation. Thanks so much.